What's good? What's good? What's good? You are not watching Drew Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land. But you're in for a good show today. Getting a quick one in before I go to work. Excuse me. Thanks for pulling up, though. So, you want to do a podcast like what you're watching, photo shoot, music video, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And if you're looking for a clean, no crash energy drink, get on that phone, get on your laptop, type in dubby.com, w.com. Use promo code JUKE, J-U-K, for 20% off. We're going to get you right. And if you're here from YouTube, on YouTube, while you're here, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you're here on Facebook, I know you're on the He Say, She Say channel. Go on over in that search bar, type Juke Network, J-U-K Network, and hit that follow button. Once I get to 100 followers, I can go live from that page. I will be taking everything from the He Say, She Say channel over to the Juke Network channel. And whatever else you're seeing this on, go on YouTube, Juke Network, and subscribe there. Follow me at KYNG on Twitch. Help me become a Twitch affiliate, Instagram, TikTok while it's here, and then add an underscore for X or Twitter. And we got a lot to get into today, man. I was watching 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, and they got to talking about the Hall of Fame. It made me want to look up who's in it, who's up. So, not sure how the voting works, but I'm gonna pick 5 out of all the names that I list. And so, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, Subud. Who the fuck is Subud? Marc Gasol, Maya Moore, Sylvia Fowles, Tamika Holdsclaw. I don't know why I said Coleslaw. Billy Donovan, Mark Few, Lisa Blutter. And out of all those names, man, I feel like Mark Few hasn't quite won enough games for me. I feel like he's won a lot of games. But when it comes to the championship game, Gonzaga hasn't won a championship yet. They've gotten to the Final Four championship game and come up short. So for me, I'm not going to go. Like, if he eventually gets in, depending on who's the people on this list and how many people get in. Now, if it's just you go through all 10 and you say yes or no, that's a different conversation. But if I can only pick 5, not on my list. I think Shamika Holdsclaw, she's another one that's given the people that are on the list. I'm going to say no. Marc Gasol is another. Just looking at when I start going through people's accolades, you gotta be real with yourself. So Melo, like he always says, let's have a conversation. We got 10-time All-Star, 2013 scoring champ, 6-time All-NBA, 3-time gold medal winner, top 75 player, and one of the greatest scorers of all time. He can score in a phone booth, 1 dribble pull-up, 2 dribble pull-up, pump fake, footwork, post move, 3-level score, 4 or 5-level score, depending on how far you stretch the court. And I just feel like, period, when you start talking about scoring, you can't not have him in it. So he's definitely a Hall of Famer to me. Dwight Howard, 8 points. I'm not 8 points, but to go through Melo's, to go back to Melo, I forgot to mention, 22.5 points a game, 6 rebounds, 2.7 assists. To go with all of those other accolades, he was a bucket, big body bruiser, and one of the best scorers of all time. Dwight Howard, 15.7 points a game, 11.8 rebounds a game, 1.8 blocks, and 0.9 steals. So he's pretty much 16, 12, 2 blocks and a steal every game. And he was an 8-time All-Star, 5-time rebound champion, 2-time block champion, 8-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Defensive Team, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and I believe he won the dunk contest. I could be wrong on that one. And he's someone, I'm trying to remember, was he on that top 75 team? Let's look. No, I think he was a top 75 snub. Yeah, he was snubbed, but he should have been on that list. Dwight Howard, for whatever reason, gets this disrespect that I just don't quite understand. If you know basketball and have followed it for some time, there's certain things that other bigs just could not do. And as a player that played, I think he was in the 2005 draft, to now, what you ask outside of maybe being able to stretch the floor. But from a defensive standpoint, you're looking for a big that can do what Dwight was able to do in his prime. Now you put him in a pick and roll situation, he can guard the high pick and roll and make it a tough shot for a guard. We saw what he was able to do against Jokic in the playoffs in a one-on-one um, matchup, and he's been able to do dividends and pay dividends on both sides of the ball. Now, whether or not you think that his game has evolved with the times, but given where we're at right now, there's no reason why Dwight Howard should not be in that top 75 team, let alone be a Hall of Famer. Shoot, should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Like those are things that he was a force in the paint, could switch on the pick and roll, guard 1-on-1 in the post, and he was going to make it a tough matchup. Now, when you start to talk about the history of the game, as much as we hype up LeBron, there was times when that Orlando Magic team was better than the Cavs, better than the Magic and the Boston Celtics that had that big three, shoot, maybe even a big four with Ray, KG, Paul Pierce, and Rondo. And he got his team to a finals and very well should have been in the finals again throughout that time period. But it's just the makeup of the team, salary cap, bringing in new players. Eventually he gets traded and then he hurts his back. And he just was never quite that player. But if you go for a 8 to 10 year period, who was better at their position? There's not that many people that are better at the 5 spot than Dwight Howard was. And so Sue Bird, I think it goes without saying. If you know anything about the history of the W, she's a top 25 player, top 20 player, top 15 player. She's a 4-time W champion, 3-time assist leader, 2000s all-decade team, and all-time and eight-time all-W team. And now the thing about it, when you start to have these conversations as far as when you look at statistics, you got to stagger it a little bit because the length of the game and the way that the game is played is very much different. So like her numbers aren't going to look too crazy. 11.7 points, 2.5 rebounds, 5.6 assists, pretty much 12, 6, and 3. But given the way that the game is played, the way that the rules and regulations of the W, they're just slightly different to where, yeah, those numbers don't look too crazy. But given what she was able to do in the amount of time that she's played, even going back, because in the NBA, or at least it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So you got to take into account what someone did in college as well as what they did at a professional level. And that's why some of these, like even some of the coaches, I think in the end could possibly get in. But like Billy Donovan, what he did from a college standpoint is phenomenal. I can see him getting in as one of the greatest college basketball coaches, but he hasn't done much in the NBA. So those are things that you got to take into consideration. Now, Mark Few, if we're just strictly talking college coaches, he's one of the best college coaches currently and has been for some time. But the championships aren't there. It's just he has a prolonged period of winning and having his team and taking them from what was Gonzaga before he got there to where they are now. And so if I had to go 5, so Melo, Dwight, Sue Bird, Marc Gasol is not in my Hall of Fame. I feel like he was a really good player. And from an international standpoint, like you can't talk about Spain without the Gasol brothers. But I just don't feel like he's Hall of Fame worthy, me personally. Maya Moore had a short career. I think she only played in the league 7, 8 years. but she was 18 points a game, 5.96 rebounds a game, 3.3 assists, 1.7 steals a game. When she was there, she was one of the best players, if not the best player in the league. 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star MVP, 4-time NBA WNBA champion, 2014 MVP, 2014 scoring champ, 2019 steals champ, 2000, not 2000, 2-time all defensive team. She was the 2013 Finals MVP, and the W's been around. I think they just recently did their 25 years of the league being around, so they did their top 25. She's a top 20 player of all time. Now she has a longer career because her last year in the W, I believe, was the year of the pandemic. Let's look this up to confirm. Yeah, 2018, the year before the pandemic, was her 2018, 2019 was the last year that she played. And then after that, she met the man who would end up being her husband, helped him get out of prison because he was falsely convicted of something. And the rest is history. She hasn't played, hasn't dribbled in the league since. But while she was here, if there's players like T-Mac, as much as I love T-Mac, now Derrick Rose gets in, that's a whole nother conversation. But there's certain people that what they gave to the league and what they meant to the league, there wasn't a player better than Maya Moore at that time. So if I had to go through and give a 5, I'm gonna go Sylvia Fowles, Maya Moore, Melo, Dwight, and Sue Bird are all gonna be in my Hall of Fame. Now, if we're just going through this list and yes and no, Mark Gasol, Mark Few, Billy Donovan, Shamika Hoslaw would all be people that I would give the yes on. But if I have to rank them amongst other people, I'm going to go with others before I get to them. And so moving over, the NBA All-Star team has been announced. I guess it's more of an all-star selections than all-star team because there's no longer the East and West. They're going to take these 24 players, separate them into 3 teams. They're going to play in a tournament-like style and put them up, and whoever wins from the rookie game gets into this all-star tournament. And so I'm going to shoot off some names, give my thoughts on it. So in the East, the starters are Giannis, Donovan Mitchell, Cat, Jalen Brunson, and Jason Tatum. Now the reserves are Jaylen Brown, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Tyler Hero, Pascal Siakam, Cade Cunningham, Damian Lillard. If I'm just literally just sitting here going off names, Pascal Siakam, Tyler Hero, Evan Mobley, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about those 3 getting in. I think Evan Mobley is one of the best young bigs right now, but I believe Paolo got hurt. Or I feel like he would be in this game. Let's look. How many games has he played? Yeah, because he's averaging 24, 8, 5 with a steal and a block at every game. And this year, he's only played 15 games. So it's like he was hurt for a big chunk of it. So that's part of the reason why I can see why he would not be in it. But then when you get to people like Trae Young, Melo Ball, I just got talking about Carmelo Anthony, I think those are ones that I could feel would be snubbed, like Tyler Hero. Why is Tyler Hero in this game? Like, yeah, his numbers is straight. But if I'm just like he's playing good basketball, but if we're gonna hold other people to a certain standard, and if we're talking about winning and losing, like what is their, let's see, NBA standings. So the Heat are 6th, Pacers are 5th. The Cavs, I'm not tripping about the Cavs. They're 39-9. where the closest team is the Thunder. And if Chet is playing and healthy, I would assume the Thunder would get 3 players in. So I'm not mad about the Cavs getting 3 players in there. It's just the Trae Youngs, the LaMelo Balls. Those are the ones that I'm just like, when it comes to an all-star game, I get it when it comes to like factoring in winning and all of that, but I want to see good basketball, good flashy basketball. And it's like entertaining basketball at that too. And it's like when you start to think about certain people, like Rudy Gobert being in previous All-Star games, nobody wants to see Rudy Gobert in an All-Star game. There's nothing that he does that is at an All-Star level. He doesn't score at an All-Star level. He's not guarding nobody at an All-Star level. And those for me are like certain players that when we get down to it, like Tyler Hero, yeah, he can shoot, but do I think he's a better player than LaMelo Ball or Trae Young? Hell no. And I think that if you switch them and put them on different teams, on the teams that Tyler Hero put him on the Hornets, put him on the Hawks, and then put LaMelo or Trae Young in that same spot, you would be getting a different player the team will probably be playing a little bit better, honestly. And so it's just like one of those things where I just feel like when it comes to certain things, I feel like we need the best players in this game and not just the best player on the best teams. And I don't like that whole ordeal. And so going over to the West, which, like I said, isn't really going to end up being the West, but this is the West All-Star selection. And so we got Joker, KD, LeBron, SGA, Steph as the starters, Anthony Edwards, James Harden, Sengun, Wemby, Anthony Davis, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jalen Williams are the reserves. And then when we start to have this conversation, this opens up for who was snubbed. And these are things for me is where, like, Tyler Hero, Pascal Siakam, Evan Mobley, like, are they better players than players that got left off? Trae Young, LaMelo Ball. Then when you start to really think about it, like Steph, as much as we love Steph, why is Steph a starter? And people like Kyrie, people like I'm trying to think, what's my man's name? Let me look up Ja Morant because I don't want to say Ja Morant and then the whole time he only played 10 games. But then you got people like a Ja Morant, you got Sabonis. Jaren Jackson over Sabonis is like another one. Like, why would I put Jaren Jackson over Sabonis? Like, all right, 22.8, 6 rebounds. Like, for a big, that's not that good. But then when you look at it, what are the standings? The Grizzlies are third, where the Kings are 10th. So what do you really do? Who do you contribute it to? Do you say is Jaren Jackson being the leader? How many games has Ja Morant played in? And I think you end up getting your answer. All right. He's missed 21 games this year. Wait, nah, hold up. This year alone. Hold up. Let's get to it. Because this is from old. All right, so he's only missed 8 games. So that's not that many. Like, he's played in 28 games. And I don't know. I just feel like for me, there's certain stuff where you start to have these conversations, and when we get into these the all-star snubs, I just feel like we got to start having these conversations as far as taking away the names and what it is, how the game should be played, or even just winning. Like, I feel like winning should play some kind of factor because you don't want somebody that's like LaMelo. I get it. LaMelo is a hooper. He's a gamer, and the team is bad. But is the team so bad that even though you're averaging like 38, 9 or something like that, y'all still have only won like 6 games. Like, where are the Hornets right now? How many games are they win? Yeah, 12 and 32. Like, are they that bad to the point where it doesn't matter what you do, or are your stats not contributing to winning basketball? Same thing for like Trae Young. Trae Young, the Hawks are 22-6. Is the team that bad, or are you not contributing to winning basketball? Because you look at Trae Young, he's always high in turnovers. Not a good defender, if not a defensive liability. So it's like, yeah, putting up 40 and 20, but then y'all barely won, if you won at all, is one of those things of what's the give and take here. And so it sucks to see, but it is one of those things that it just is what it is. And so it's been a big talk. Should Deion Sanders dictate where Shador goes in the draft? And this is one of those things for me that, as a father, shit, if I had a son that was about to get drafted and I'm Deion Sanders and Archie Manning was able to get Eli to where he wanted him to go, John Elway went where he wanted to go, the whole Jim Kelly fiasco, like, you damn right I'm gonna put myself out there and make sure my son gets in the best situation possible. And so, yeah, like there's certain things of, all right, when you look at the draft, all right, the top pick doesn't need a quarterback. All right, so you go Cleveland. Cleveland needs a quarterback. Is Cleveland a place where you want to go? I think that Stefanski is a good enough coach. He's shown that he was able to make the playoffs. Deshaun Watson goes down. They bring in Joe Flacco. They still get to the playoffs. Now, if you have a competent quarterback with the weapons that they have over there, I feel like he would be in a good situation. It's just you don't have the quarterback that you need for the future. And so, yeah, in the end, do I think he should dictate where his son goes and where Shador goes? I don't blame him. I feel like in the end, the media need to pick a side because they try to make this narrative of black men aren't fathers, but then when we father too much, we're doing too much when it comes to like LeVar Ball, Deion Sanders. They say we're doing too much. Our kids are afraid of us. Oh, woody why? Just first off, pick a side. If you want us to be there, then we're gonna be there. But then when we be there, we there too much. So I don't blame him. I think yes, you should um, put your hands in everything and then step out the way and let his coach be his coach. And so it's one of those things right now. I've been hearing a lot of talks, and I am about to start getting into once the Super Bowl is over. I will start breaking down the combine, what players to look for from each position. But before I even get into all of that, it's this talk whether or not it's Shador, is it Cam Ward, which one would you take? And so for me, from what I've seen so far, just from watching their college careers, I think right now Shador is a more polished quarterback than Cam Ward is. Now, whether or not, if you've ever seen Cam Ward and Shador standing next to each other, talking to each other, I think it's slight cap that Cam Ward is 6'2". I don't believe that he's a legit 6'2". I could be wrong. Now, when it comes to the combine, they very well might call me cap, or the 6'2" thing could be cap. But just going based off of their games, I feel like Cam Ward is a little bit more of like a Caleb Williams, where he's a lot of what he's gonna do is gonna be off schedule, creating plays down the field, and he has a hell of an arm. Now I'm not gonna take that away from him, but if you don't go to the right situation, this is why we end up having a situation where Jaden Daniels is more polished than Caleb Williams. He's gonna come in. He can do the 1-2-3, balls out, 1-2-3-4, balls out, 5-step drop, balls out, create the play, maneuver the pocket, and be able to create a play down the field. Now, Shador is not the athlete that Jaden Daniels is, but we've seen someone who is his tutor, Tom Brady, or his mentor, not tutor, mentor, be able, not the athlete that either of the people I mentioned before are, but to be able to maneuver the pocket, to be able to create space and be able to push the ball down the field is one of those things that I feel like Shador is a little bit better at. Now, he has been sacked a lot in college. He was like 42 sacks this past year. And so those are things that you need to worry about. But I feel like if I'm comparing the two, I like Shador a little bit more. Although if Cam can clean it up and become more polished, he does have more of the raw tools than Shador Sanders does. And so going into it, we got the 2-minute drill. D Rose was on, I forget the name of the podcast, but I know it's Tony Allen and Zach Randolph Zebo. They got a cool little podcast, not a little podcast. I didn't mean it that way, but they got a nice podcast. I enjoy it. I like hearing their stories. And Derrick Rose was on there. Derrick Rose was talking about his matchups in the league. And Derrick Rose went as far as to say it's not a real matchup if you don't want to stick me. And being from Chicago, whether or not it's a Chicago term or whatnot, sticking someone is guarding someone. Now, is it a real matchup if you put me, Steph, and Derrick Rose on the court, but then Steph is guarding the 2 guard and he's not guarding Derrick Rose? Is that a real matchup? And I agree with him, man. I think that in the end, when it comes to those things, if we're going to call it a matchup, I feel like the competitor in you should want to guard the person that's playing your position. Now, this ain't football. You ain't a quarterback where we say, oh, Josh Allen is being outperformed by Mahomes. No, really, Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs defense is outperforming Josh Allen to the point where he's not able to put up as many points as Mahomes is able to do against the Buffalo Bills defense. And so I do agree with him. I think that, and when it comes to basketball, it's one of those things that it's mano a mano. And so I feel like if you go play the same position and say you're the best at that position, you can't duck smoke when it comes to playing somebody that plays the same position as you. And so Elijah Arenas commits to USC. What are my thoughts? I saw this coming. I feel like his dad really wanted him to go to Arizona. And I do believe that had Bronny gone to USC instead of going to Arizona, I feel like he would have gone to Arizona. The whole thing of Gilbert Arenas and what he was saying or has said for so long is you got to go and cut your teeth as being the man. Now, if you go to a school that got other people on the team, how can you really show that you can be the man when you get to the league and now you're supposed to be this number 1 pick that, like, for example, I always talk about Cam Reddish played with Zion, RJ Barrett, and now look at what Cam Reddish is. He pretty much, once he got to college, he was groomed to be a role player where he never really had to truly cut it on to be able to take over a game. And so I'm not surprised at all, honestly. I feel like in the end, I saw this coming. Now, I wasn't necessarily sure where he would go, but I did think that once Bronny went to Arizona, he was definitely not going to go to Arizona. And so last time I got left, before we get up out of here, Sam Darnold and Russell Wilson, who would you pay? Now, Sam Darnold, they have 2 completely different paths. Sam Darnold was trash for years, had a really good year in Minnesota this year. Russell Wilson was the man, went to Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl, should have won a second, goes to Denver, plays terrible, has a really good second year, but people are so blinded by the first year that they just don't necessarily pay attention to it. He goes to Pittsburgh and has a decent year. Who would you pay going forward? And for all the pundits, I think Chase Daniels, I agree with him the most. Now, if Sam Darnold is staying in Minnesota, I would pay him over Russ because I feel like he's shown that he can thrive in that system with the weapons that he's given and thrive at a high level. Now, when the game got to the big game, did he shrivel up back to the Sam Darnold that we know? Yes. But, for example, like Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll being the Raiders coach. Now, if I'm picking between the two, give me Russell Wilson, and it's not close. So I just feel like Sam Darnold is not good enough to be able to go to a new situation where the things are not in his favor and be able to thrive. And so thank you all for watching. If you're here, hit that subscribe button, but I got to get up out of here.